We've had an interesting week of it. You may have followed along. We've been trying to capture, remove, or otherwise dissuade
eliminate
a rat from eating our crops in the greenhouse.
We weren't 100% sure what it was at first because we've had a couple times when we never were able to identify what was doing it, and it could have been a mouse, but it turned out to be a rat. That's what the game cameras do for you. They let you know what the heck your adversary is.
Now, we've been using game cameras for years. We started doing that when we were having plants in the garden being destroyed by unknown things. So we needed to know what was causing that problem, just like we needed to know in the greenhouse what was causing the problem.
Right, so as soon as it happened, I grabbed one of the game cameras and tossed it out there, and that night we saw the rat.
We have quite a number of game cameras. We use them all over our property for a variety of reasons. One is to keep track of wildlife that comes around. Another one is to capture anybody who's trying to
do something stupid that they shouldn't be.
Well, we won't talk about that.
Anyway. Yeah, most people out here encourage the use of game cameras because it's just, you can't be everywhere all the time. Whether you've got water that's flowing someplace that you didn't know it was flowing, or a neighbor whose dogs are coming over, or wild animals that are coming through, you know, any of those things can be an issue for you depending on exactly what you have, you know. People think of things like Javelinas as not being that big a problem. Yeah, they can kill a dog. No problem.
They can be pretty vicious.
And wild pigs are the same way. You know, they can kill a dog, they can kill a small child, they can wreak havoc on an adult, you know. So if you have something like that wandering around, you want to know about it because you want to be aware of it. I mean, we did spot one here, actually.
Yeah, Javelinas are something else. They do have some relatively large tusks that can be very, very sharp. And yeah, Jack woofed.
He woofed, and Jack didn't woof. So when Jack woofs, you always check it out. And he had spotted a javelina outside the fence, and the javelina took off, but it was headed towards our neighbor. So we actually called our neighbor to let him know that it was kind of headed his way because he has dogs that are loose in his yard,
chickens,
and a garden, all three of which javelinas are very fond of,
and a greenhouse.
Yes, and a greenhouse. He actually had damage to his greenhouse, but it wasn't from the javelinas. It was actually from a deer that got in and panicked and destroyed a whole bunch of plastic and other things. It can happen. But if you have game cameras, then you know what it is. You're not making some wild guess as to, you know, oh, it's the neighbor trying to get me. No, it's just a stupid deer that got in. You know, and because sometimes you can see footprints, but sometimes you can't, and you're not sure what the heck went wrong. And it's hard to know how you can block whatever the problem is if you don't know what the heck the problem is. So yeah, we put a game camera out there, and then it was a matter of figuring out what we could do to catch the blasted thing.
It was really picky about what it ate.
Yeah, and I think the reason we finally got it was that in the process of covering up the holes and making sure nothing could get in, I locked it in. You know, which is something you don't know when you close up holes. So the thing could be in or it could be out, and unfortunately we have a bunch of stuff stored in there right now. So if we had not been able to catch it very quickly, we were actually going to spend some time out there going through every little nook and cranny in the stupid greenhouse to try and find it, which was not something I was looking for.
And laying on the ground with a flashlight underneath the benches because they're covered with black plastic.
Right, well, I wasn't worried about that part because I was going to bring Rufus with me. And he is a terrier. The other day we were laughing because I had been running the vacuum, and I wound up with this big dust bunny, you know, and
fur
it was
bunny.
yeah,
Fur bunny.
it was fur from Jack, because Jack used to shed a lot. Rufus doesn't, but between the cat and the dog, you know, you wind up with quite a lot, and Jack shed a lot. So I had this big fur thing, and I threw it out the door, and Rufus got all excited. He ran right over to it. And if you've ever watched pictures of foxes or coyotes stunning or killing rodents, what they do is they straighten their front legs and they bounce on them, bam, like that with both feet. And most of the time it will actually kill the rodent. If it doesn't, if it's not enough to kill it, it'll stun it enough so that a bite will take care of the rest of it. Well, that's what he did to the dust bunny. And
He
then,
got a mouthful of fur.
he got a mouthful of fur and he was going to eat it. And I'm like, oh, don't. So, you know, so I opened his mouth and got it out and scraped
He's
off
really
his tongue.
good. He's really good about letting it get in his mouth to get things out.
Which is good because he likes to pick up anything he sees on the floor.
He does. Mm-hmm. We took him to an event yesterday. If you saw yesterday's show, we had a little bit of Rufus walking around this event with Irene. He did fabulously well.
Yeah, he did. He did really well. He people, lots of noise, yelling because the instructions and stuff would be yelled out to let people know what was going on, and his response would just be to look over and see what was going on. He didn't freak out.
Every once in a while he'd startle. Now,
oh yeah, well heck, I startled a couple of times when somebody did something behind me and I didn't expect it, you know.
Now, when we got Rufus, he had been really kind of socially deprived is the kindest way to put it.
Right.
He wasn't abused that we can tell, but he
neglected.
He didn't have a lot of real world experience.
Right.
And one of the things that we've been working very hard on is getting to see other environments, other people, other animals. We've been doing it in small steps because he really doesn't have that experience.
No, and he hasn't been around people much, so he is wary of them. He just doesn't know what they want. And we have like buckets of friends who love dogs. And a couple of them had their hands kind of stuck in their pockets yesterday because one of the women was saying, I just want to scruff him and hug him and everything. And my other girlfriend said, yeah, that's why I've got my hands like this, so that I have to remind myself not to pet him because they know he's shy. That's why I told people who were meeting him the first time yesterday that he's shy and he just takes a little while to warm up to people. Now, by the end of the day, he was doing pretty well. If somebody really wanted to meet him, they could meet him gently and he would be fine with it and pet him and stuff like that. So he opened up a lot yesterday. He got woofed at by a couple of dogs. He was around a bunch of dogs, some of whom are well trained and just really are kind of like, whatever, it's a dog. And then there was looked like a pity mix that was just, they were kissing through the fence. They had to meet, and I happened to be walking him on the outside of the fence, and they were all snuffly about one another. But they was very nice, and when they met in person, it was fine too. And then there was one little terrier that had to woof at him, but his mom and dad just made him shut up and sit down, and much to his chagrin. And Rufus didn't respond to him at all. I mean, he looked kind of like, what's that dog yelling at me for? And that's what Jack used to do. He would be sitting there going, why is that dog yelling at me? So good responses, the best you can hope for, really.
One of the best responses yesterday was when Rufus decided that when Irene stopped walking and started talking, it was time to lay down.
Yeah, he's learning that if I stop and I'm talking to somebody, he might as well just lay down.
And he did it several times, and it was great. But we left the house about 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock?
9 o'clock, because with the timer had just gone off, yeah.
And we were at that event site for probably between 5 and 6 hours, which was a pretty long day for poor little Rufus. Well, he's not so little.
Yeah, poor big Rufus. So he was quite tired when we got home last night. It was pretty funny.
He was exhausted. He came in, grabbed his bone and carried it, and then proceeded to not chew on it. He just fell asleep.
Yeah. So he had a good time. And I think in general, the group of people we play with when we do the medieval stuff like dogs, and most have dogs, or have had dogs, or some have allergies, so they can't have dogs. But other than that, most of those people are animal people, so they either have dogs or cats or both, or all of the above, or something else. So it's a good environment in the sense that people are tolerant of other dogs, and he had a good time. We took a couple of nice long walks when I knew that it was just like, okay, there's a time frame here where we have to wait for something to happen anyway. I might as well take him for a walk now. because I didn't want him to be too uptight from being around people all the time. So I took him for a nice long walk around the outside, and there was lots of dog stuff out there. So it was perfect. He got to sniff everything.
We start off saying that we had some success in the greenhouse. I've put together a short montage of what occurred yesterday. Irene went out and checked. The rat came in during the night.
Well, it came from wherever it is during the night, which I am convinced is in the pile of junk. We'll find a nest, I'm sure, when we go to...
Somewhere.
Yeah.
But anyway, it came in and decided to poke its head where it shouldn't.
No, it should actually have poked its head there. You know, my go-to when I first have rodents appear magically is based on what I have hanging around in the kitchen that's a little past its best of use by date. And I had an apple that had gotten a little bit mealy. I figure if I could smell an apple from a fair distance when it's been freshly cut, you know what the rodents can do. They can smell that for miles.
They normally go after
Yeah.
a fresh cut apple pretty quickly, but we tried...
We tried the fresh apple. There was peanut butter. They could have cared less about that. And then at the end there, I had put out, Henry had made coleslaw the other day, and I had part of the core of the cabbage that was still in the bucket to go out to the compost pile. And I'm like, I'm going to use the cabbage because he's been eating the cabbage plants, so maybe he'll like cabbage. And first night, didn't touch it. But I think what was happening is he was getting hungry because there was nothing else in there to eat that he could get to because I had everything covered. So he...
Yeah, when in the show you can see some green things on top of the buckets, and those are actually saucers.
Those are saucers, yeah.
That normally go underneath the buckets.
Yeah, but I had spares, so I just plopped them on top of the buckets.
And they worked fabulous.
Yeah, he couldn't shift them. One night he was able to shift one a teeny bit, so he damaged a couple of radishes. But and he doesn't apparently care for radishes much because he didn't do a lot of damage there. He damaged literally like one plant. But it is funny. They do prefer some plants over others. So, yeah, he made the final mistake, and he went out onto the driveway last night, and he was gone this morning. So either a coyote or something else got him last night or this morning early.
Yeah, we'd rather not have to eliminate things like rodents, but there's not much of a choice.
Well, you know, we try to, whenever we can, like I know people who have shot everything they've ever seen on their property. Well, I did not move out to the country to shoot everything that I ever saw on my property. So that's just kind of not my thing. I enjoy the wildlife. I know that it can be dangerous sometimes, not usually for people, usually just for critters. So, you know, we've got bobcats, and we've got coyotes, and we've got bald eagles and golden eagles.
And the occasional mountain lion.
Yeah, and great horned owls, like I heard the great horned owl again last night. So I certainly would not let little kitties running around at night, or small chihuahuas or anything else too. But generally speaking, we like to fence out what we can. So the yard is rabbit proof. It's got 2 layers of fencing that the rabbits can't get through. We monitor the edges of it to make sure that they're not digging a hole. If they dig a hole, we fix the hole, and they're out again. You know, if they come in, they sometimes is their last act of foolishness, because I jack killed a couple before I figured out where the rabbits were getting in one time. And I don't like that because they're usually covered with fleas. And then you have to deflea your dog, which is never a fun thing. And of course, if you have a dog and a cat, then you have to deflea the cat too because they're going to share.
Fleas happen.
Fleas happen.
Well, let's go ahead and watch that montage. It's interesting. You'll see Irene wearing some medieval clothes. That's what we happened to be wearing when we got home.
Yeah, that's actually my Viking outfit, so it's not medieval. It's pre-medieval.
I know, but you don't want to confuse people.
one off. Got that one off.
Well, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications because we're still doing a lot more stuff. Irene's been down in the studio all day long. She just came up for some lunch and to shoot this piece of the show with me.
Yep.
She's going to go back down and work on more waxes.
Yeah, I'm hoping to reach a certain point tonight. If I don't make it tonight, my problem is Tuesday is a deadline for us because Rufus is getting neutered on Tuesday, so our entire day we have to have him at the vet's office at 8 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday, which means we're leaving at some obscene hour of the morning to get there. And of course, it's supposed to rain on Tuesday.
Now, it's not raining, it's going to be mudding.
Yeah, so, and the rain is actually supposed to start tomorrow, so it's going to be a mess. And then we have to be gone all day while we wait for them to be done, so we're going to run some errands and stuff while we're up there just to keep ourselves busy. Probably shop a couple places that we don't normally get a chance to shop because it takes too much time. So that'll be an opportunity at least. I'm trying to reach a certain amount of work done today. So I've already spent about 3 or 4 hours down there. And yeah, I'd like to just say that's enough for the day, but it isn't. I have to get more stuff done. The advantages of owning a business of your own is that you get to work any day of the week that needs to have work done on it. So be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell because obviously we're going to be doing lots more. And I actually plan to do some flags and banners and stuff, hopefully this week. But I have a feeling it'll be in a couple of weeks because this week's going to be booked.
Lots of stuff going on.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, we have to take time for life out of the middle of this whole thing. So until next time, bye.
Bye. And keep on brainstorming.
Yeah, obviously, we are.